Malachi Corley, the New York Jets' former third-round pick. Well, it's looking like he's not going to be on the team's 53-man roster. What looked like a future playmaker just a year ago is now shaping up to be one of Joe Douglas's biggest draft busts. However, why is Corley's fate fading so fast in New York? Well, a brand new troubling report from Connor Hughes of SNY may have the answer, and we're breaking down that right here on NY Flight Jets Talk. What's going on, everyone? Hello, and welcome back here into another edition of NY Flight Jets Talk. I'm your host, Connor Long, right here with you guys on this Sunday morning, August 24th, 2025. Make sure you drop down below, smash that like button, hit subscribe because it is completely free and it helps the channel grow significantly. I mentioned it there at the open. If you followed along the New York Jets, if you followed the Jets at all this summer, if you've kept up with the preseason, if you kept up with training camp, you pretty much know that Malachi Corley's chances of making this team are around 1%. There is no world, in my opinion, that Malachi Corley finds his way onto this team's 53-man roster as we speak. Cut down day, just 2 days away. Corley, a former third-round pick from last year, the pick made by Joe Douglas. The Jets were clearly enamored with Corley, his skill set, what he brought to the table, enough to trade up to the first pick in the third round and select him over Brian Thomas Jr., LSU's Brian Thomas Jr., who was a Pro Bowler his first year in the league. Corley coming out of Western Kentucky, a smaller school. There were concerns about his route running ability right away, but the Jets seemed to not be too worried about that. They thought he was going to come in. Heck, some pundits even had him listed as the team's wide receiver too entering the season. However, no role on offense last year whatsoever. A drop touchdown before crossing the goal line, and Corley's rookie campaign went up in flames, and he hasn't bounced back per se this summer, which again leaves him on the outside looking in with cut down day approaching. However, why is Malachi Corley's first 2 years in New York gone so poorly? Speaking on Jets' final drive, the first episode of this season, SNY's Connor Hughes might have the answer. Let's take a listen.
The Corley thing to me is like a wild miss, like not even close. And there was stuff last year where I guess we can talk about it now, where like he didn't want to give the number 17 to Devontae Adams. Adams was like, "Hey, I'll give you 20 grand for the number," and Corley's like, "I want 120 grand." Like crazy stuff like that, where it was like he didn't want to play special teams because he thought he should be a starting receiver, and they're like, "Dude, you're a rookie." Like what? It's just an entitlement and an immaturity, and it really dragged him down.
An entitlement, an immaturity, and it really dragged him down. Those are the words from Connor Hughes, sharing an unworldly story of what went on with Malachi Corley and Devontae Adams negotiating for the number 17. Malachi Corley, as a rookie, was offered $20,000 and had the nerve to counter an all-time great in Devontae Adams for $120,000 for a jersey. What a joke. And we saw the attitude last year. We saw the immaturity. One of the main reasons he was a healthy scratch for multiple games for this team last year, obviously under head coach Robert Saleh. But when you talk about a culture change, a new regime coming to town with Aaron Glenn and Darren Muji, Aaron Glenn doesn't stand for immaturity. Aaron Glenn doesn't stand for attitude. He doesn't stand for divas. And that's really all that Malachi Corley's been throughout his Jets tenure. He's produced nothing on the field in the regular season. In the preseason this year, he had a couple nice kick returns against the Eagles on Friday night, but that's too little too late. It's time for Jet fans to just realize that this pick was an awful pick by Joe Douglas, trading up for him, selecting him over Brian Thomas Jr., one of JD's many draft busts, and a player like Corley stands no chance on making this team's 53-man roster. So as unfortunate as is, the high expectations that this fan base had for him coming out of Western Kentucky, coming out of college, Yak King was the nickname. Well, the Yak King, it's looking like he's going to be on the open market. And I'll throw out a bit of a hot take here. I don't know if he's on an NFL team's 53-man roster this season, which is insane given that he was the first pick in the third round of last year's draft. But that's what immaturity will do. That's what being a diva will do to you. And that's what not performing on the field will do to you above all. Malachi Corley, he's not going to be a New York Jet. Heck, will he be on an NFL roster post-cutdown day? A Joe Douglas draft bust, to say the very least. A troubling report from Connor Hughes. That's what we broke down right here on NY Flight Jets Talk. Thank you for tuning in. I'm your host, Connor Long, right here on the show, saying have a great rest of your day, everyone. And as always, JTS, baby. Jets, Jets, Jets. Peace out.